That last game was a breeze, and I hope this next one is equally the same. I always enjoy the challenge of going up against a guy with good players. That last team, quite frankly, didn't have too much with Kendall Gill. But this guy's got some good players. I mean, he's got Dwayne Wade on the bench, and James Harden, that guy is very good this year. I kind of liken him to Kyrie Irving in terms of ability. He'll surprise you. James Harden's a great player in the NBA, but not what you think of as, like, the best player in the NBA. But he's one of the better players, if not top 5 of current day players who you'll find in this mode. He can definitely hit a three-pointer, and he's a good all-around player defensively and passing, so I like that. I'm going to go nuts with Gary Payton in this game. Gary Payton, I'm so happy that I've got him on my team. I love the way he plays. I think they've got something going on between him and Sean Kemp, and it's just a lot of fun to use him, just as much as it was last year. But it requires a different style of play. I can't launch the floaters the same way I did in last year's mode, because the animations are totally different. And I think in some respects that's a good thing. It makes him a little bit less predictable and overpowered with the floater, but there's a trade-off, and it works out to his benefit because the other animations help him, and he also has a better finishing ability than last year, which I really like. I'm going to get off to an early start. LeBron is working his jump shot game plan. What I want to talk to you about for this game is my experience with the Xbox 360. Now, I know many of my viewers have listened to me talk about this in one of last year's 2K13 My Team videos, but I'll talk about it again for some of you newcomers and just refresh everyone's memory, because we're very close to the release date of the Xbox One and the PS4. I'm certain that many of my viewers have already gotten plans, maybe even pre-ordered one of the two systems, possibly even 2K14. I also know that there's a growing number of people out there who have not bought NBA 2K14 for the current gen because they're waiting to play it on the next gen. So I want to share my thoughts with you on both those purchase topics. And I'm going to speak from experience. I bought the Xbox 360 the day it came out. I believe it was back in late 2005, and when I waited up all night, I think I got it at midnight at a Walmart. I also got it with my favorite game at the time, which was Madden Football. So let's talk about the experience of the system first, and then we'll talk about the game. When I got the Xbox 360, it was great. It was totally different. I didn't have the Xbox. I was a PS2 user at the time. And look at Benny going around that attempt to take charge there. That was a sweet move. The Xbox 360 was a game changer. The graphics were probably 4 times as better, or, a million times better, depending on how you want to look at it. They were phenomenal. The games were very good looking. The colors were better. It was just an all-around amazing system. It totally changed everything. I think there hadn't been a console update for something like 4 or 5 years since the original Xbox had come out. It was probably about 3 or 4 years, actually. And it was a game changer. The PS3 came out shortly thereafter, and both the systems are terrific. Oh, look at this. GP gets a ball loose, he gets the steal, and he's ooping it up to LeBron James. What an alley-oop dunk. It's good to get that back going. GP doing it all around. Good passing this game. So that 360, when it came out, it was a leap forward in technology, but it had a lot of issues. And the first thing that comes to mind is the disc. When it sat in the disc tray, if you had any sort of movement of the console, if it jiggled or whatnot, it would damage the disc. There was no safeguard between where the disc held from the tray when it sat and spun inside the 360 itself, and any sort of movement, any jitter, that disc would get scratched. And I remember distinctly getting one game. I put the game in, and as soon as I hit play, I was out in California at the time. There's a little tremor, and I mean just a little tremor, no big deal. I barely even noticed it until one of those disc is unreadable screens came up, and I was shocked. I thought there was something wrong with the disc. I took it out, and sure enough, I looked at the ring, and it was a gigantic scratch, just like all of the other times I had destroyed my discs with the jittering of the system. And when the Xbox came out originally, they advertised it as this thing where you could lean it on its side, you could hang it, upright, you could lay it flat down, any number of ways. And if you had that with a disc in there, I mean, you just destroy the disc. And it made this really distinct sound too when you had the disc in there and it was cutting it up, which is kind of unsettling. I mean, that you needed to take another trip to the store and get a new disc. So that was just one of the many things that was lacking with that first system. Over time, they recognized that plenty of people were destroying their discs. And I mean, these are like $60 games. The price of games also went up when the Xbox 360 came out. I think they grew by about 33% in price. So Microsoft recognized that problem, and they came out with a fix. So future generations, and it took about 1.5 years to fix, of the Xbox didn't scratch the discs nearly as readily as the ones that came out with that first iteration. Here we go, we're on the loose again with Mitch Richmond, open it up to LeBron James again. Wow, we're off to the races. We're getting back to that 360 that came out on release. Other improvements were made. Wi-Fi didn't even exist back when that first Xbox came out. It took a while for them to implement that. It took a while for them to improve the memory. You used to have to buy individual memory cards. The hard drive, I can't remember if one was available when the Xbox was initially released. In fact, I think it was, but it was considerably slow, didn't have a lot of capacity, and it just wasn't good to use. So what a lot of people did is they'd buy these cards that you could stick in the front of your Xbox, and it would say something like 4 or 8 megabytes. They're actually fairly expensive to get. And games back then just didn't require a lot of memory. Look at that block. GP ends the half with authority. So the Xbox 360 took a while to come around. I would say it took a good 3 years for them to finally come out with a version of it that was reliable, didn't have all the flaws of the release version. Now think about the Xbox One that came out. There was a conference about 3 months ago where they unveiled the Xbox One. And in that conference, they proposed the idea of having a digital rights management system that required a user to get in touch with the internet every time they logged onto the Xbox in order to play their games. So if you had the Xbox One, if you wanted to play your games, you would have to connect to the internet. Now, if you lived in a remote area, or maybe just don't, have the internet, or you're late on your cable bills, I don't know. I mean, a lot of these opponents I'm playing are having internet troubles. Just imagine trying to play your games and having to connect to the internet every time. That's not good. Well, the backlash of that came out immediately after the conference, that people didn't want to use the Xbox One if they were going to have to log on to the internet every time. Well, Xbox responded like 2 days later saying they're going to remove this feature from the Xbox, but this feature was like hardwired into the Xbox, either via hardware or firmware, whatever it was. It takes something to change that. And this is 3 months away from when the Xbox is actually coming out. So you would think that at that phase of time, they had a pretty solid idea what the Xbox was going to be like. Quite frankly, I don't think they did. And I think that the Xbox One is not a finished product at this time. Now you got to think about it from 2K's perspective. They're trying to build a game for a console that doesn't even exist. The Xbox One that they're using is probably some kind of prototype. They have an idea of the specs, and in my imagination, the Xbox One and the initial launch of games that are going to come out for it are going to be pretty bare bones editions of what we're used to seeing in terms of functionality mode. So yeah, there's going to be some great graphics. It's going to be a game changer like we experienced when that initial Xbox 360 came out, but the games are going to stink. I remember when the first Madden came out. It was Madden 2005 or 6 for that Xbox 360. It didn't have a franchise mode. Well, it did. It lasted 1 year, so it wasn't even a franchise. It was just a season where you could do trades. And that's why I think 2K has been really slow to commit, saying that there's a My Team available in the Xbox One version of the game. So the next gen games are going to have maybe a reduced amount of features, because 2K is spending a lot of time just figuring out what the Xbox One even is and how they can implement the graphics and the changes and the features are probably going to come last. So I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. I hope that the Xbox One is a great system. I hope that 2K comes out with an amazing game this year, but in all honesty, from my experience, I think it's best to just wait. So I'm going to wait unless I'll let you do the research for me. If it's a great game and a great console, just drop me some comments and I'll go out and buy it and then enjoy it. But until that happens, I'm just going to sit on my hands and wait a year or so and get it when 2K15 comes out, because that's when I think we're going to see the best of the Xbox One and the best of the 2K series. It's going to take some time. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is the fact that we don't really know if the Xbox is going to be superior to the PS4, or is the PS4 going to be a better system. I remember I was a diehard PS2 fan. I never thought I'd use an Xbox until the 360 came out, and I think a lot of people migrated to the 360 who were former PS2 users. I don't have any data in front of me, but at least in the United States, all my friends use the 360. They kind of skipped out on the PS3 experience. The PS3 I thought had more features. They really sold that Blu-ray stuff pretty hard, but in the end the 360 won that battle. I thought the PS2 was a little bit better than the original Xbox, but I can't tell you what the future holds. I mean, the PS4 may be a vastly superior system, and we'll have to wait and see. That's why it's also important. I'm not going to buy both systems. I think that's silly. Every other commentator I've watched their videos are like, I'm buying both systems. I'm buying both games. I can't wait to bring them to you. I can wait, I'll tell you that. And I hope you do too, because I don't want you to make a purchase that's unnecessary and that's going to disappoint you. And if it is a great system, I'll read the reviews and happily go out and buy them. In this game, I took control with Gary Payton. Got a lot of points, a lot of steals. And both of my point guards, him and Penny, took the game over. I'm now back above 500 and happy to bring you more games from the Succeed.